Hi, welcome to the Big Chord questionnaire. What we're going to do today is I'm going to play you a bunch of notes and you're going to tell me, or at least try to guess, what chord I'm playing. For example, what's this? Which chord is this? What about this chord? Now, we'll get to all of those in a moment, but I'd like to say that I'm kind of setting you up for failure here. And the reason is that really, many times, this is an ambiguous question. The same group of notes can correspond to more than one chord. And it really depends on the context. But still, I think it's pretty interesting to think about these things and try to conjecture and kind of just discuss and see whether we can come up with the chord or chords that these notes might correspond to. So without further ado, let's get started. And we're going to start with something simple. Let me just play this guy. Just a warm-up. So some of you might get the feeling that this has like a major character, which is correct. And some of you might also get the feeling that this has some tension. It actually has a seventh, and it should sound like a major seventh. And that's also true. To decode this chord, what I'm going to do is take this E flat down here. And what I have here is an E flat major 7. Here's the E flat triad, major triad, and here's the additional major 7th degree. So it's basically just playing an inversion of the E flat major 7. Okay, so now that you kind of gotten the hang of this challenge, let's get into something more interesting. And what I actually recommend you do is, after I play the chord, just pause the video and just think about it for a bit. You know, I know it's fun to hear the answer, but I think it's also fun to take the time and think about these things for yourself. Maybe you could do like one chord a day, because I'm going to show a couple of different chords here. All right, let's look at this guy, which I played at the beginning, and it has the notes A flat, C, and D. Now, I said that these many of the chords that we play can be ambiguous. The first thing when you try to sort of decode the chord is try and figure out maybe is the root in there or not, because many chords actually don't have the root in their voicing. And so that's one thing to look for. Another thing to look for when you're analyzing chords is looking at subsets of notes and trying to figure out what they might indicate. For example, I might omit this C here. Let's look at these two notes, and I have an A flat and a D. Now an A flat and a D define a tritone, and a tritone is one of the hallmark intervals in dominant 7th chords. This particular tritone could correspond to one of two dominant 7th chords. One is the E dominant 7th, and the other is the B flat dominant 7th, which you can see if I just take this 7th here, put it down here, and keep the 7th and the 3rd. Now, to be honest, this thing doesn't really sound like an E flat dominant 7th, but it does sound a little bit like a B flat dominant 7th. Here's the chord, here's the B flat dominant 7th. But maybe even when you listen to it closely, it sounds a little bit like this thing resolves to this thing. So this gets you thinking about 2 5s. And the 2-5, or the 2 that resolves to the 5, which is the B flat major, is an F minor. And actually, again, this is just one of the many possible answers, what I was playing here in the left hand is an F minor sixth chord. Here's the F minor, here's the sixth, and I'm omitting the root. Now, is this the only possible answer? Well, no. For example, let's take this E dominant seventh, and let's make it an E dominant seventh augmented 5. So we're going to take this 5 here and move it up one semitone. And then omit the root. So again, this could be an E dominant seventh plus 5. However, in my own personal interpretation, this is an F minor 6. And if you just try to play the F blues scale on it, it actually fits quite nicely. So this is basically a demonstration of really how ambiguous this game is, but that's part of the fun. Let's look at something else. Let's look at this guy. Now, if you've been playing piano for long enough, then you should be actually identifying this visually, because this is such an important chord, and if you don't know it, it really pays off to memorize it. This is well, I won't tell you the answer yet, but let's try to reverse engineer it. So I've given you some ideas, and one of the ideas is to look for tritones in the voicing of the chords, and I actually have a triton here, these two notes. I also have a major third, which is these two notes, the F and the A. But usually triton, it's kind of like poker. Sometimes, you know, it's having a triton is like having like 3 cards, and having a major third or a minor third is like having a pair. So usually the 3 cards kind of trump the pair. Again, I'm just speaking very generally and broadly. It doesn't have to be this way. And if I look at these two notes, this triton can correspond to one of 2 dominant 7th chords. Either it's a D flat dominant 7th, or it's a G dominant 7th. Both of them, if I take this F down here, have this triton interval in them. Here's where the interval appears in the G dominant 7th. And for the D flat dominant 7th, here's again where this interval appears. Now, let's just play this chord in a G flat dominant 7. Sorry, a G dominant 7. And the D flat dominant 7th. Now, again, this is open for debate, but to me it sounds more like it's leaning towards the G dominant 7. But it also has some tensions. So let's say that we have a G dominant 7, and let's try adding the upper degrees. Here's the 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13th. Now, I'll just hold these down, and what we had in the chord that we played was an F and a B, which we already accounted for, and we also had an A and an E, which are the 9th and 13th degrees. So I can think of this as a G 13th chord, where I'm playing the 7th, 9th, 3rd, and 13th degrees. And this is actually a pretty famous voicing made popular by pianist Bill Evans. It's really worth remembering. It's really pretty nifty, especially if you're comping in your left hand and you're playing jazz piano. It really fits in nicely with a lot of progressions. You know, you can play a 2-5-1. So a very nice voicing for a 5, like a G 13th, an A 13th, a B flat 13th. Of course, you need to transpose it. Let's take another one. Another one of the guides I played in the introduction. What do you think this one is? So I give you a few tips and ideas, and you know, you're probably already looking for the tritone here, and it does have a tritone. You see, it has the F and the B. And this seems to indicate, actually, this is actually the exact same tritone we had previously. This corresponds to one of two chords, either a G dominant 7th or a D flat dominant 7th. Now, let's say that this is a D flat dominant 7. So this explains these two notes. What about these two notes? First thing you do is take the D dominant 7th and add all of the tensions, all of the higher degrees of the chord. So now I'm playing like all of the possible higher degrees. I have the 1, 3, 5, flat and 7th, and then I have the 9, 11, 13th. And remember what we had was a B flat and an E flat. So this actually explains, you know, if I take this B flat down here and keep this E flat, I basically get the voicing I was playing. This is just a D flat 13th chord. And this is kind of interesting actually, because we've used the same tritone interval to build one 13th chord voicing and another 13th chord voicing. They're not the same. You know, they actually sound quite different. Even though for one I'm playing a G and for the other I'm playing a D flat. They still have different tensions, different feel to them. So, for example, again, I can demonstrate this by playing a simple 1, 6, 2, 5, 1, let's say again in the key of C. So C major, A minor, D minor, and G dominant 7th, but I'm going to do it tritone substitution. So instead of the D dominant 7th, I'm going to play a D flat dominant 7th, or really, I'm going to play this with the additional tensions that we've played here. So this might sound something like this. So this basically goes to show just how ambiguous this entire game is. I'd like to conclude with one final voicing, and let's make this one, I guess, kind of interesting. Let's take this thing. Now you might look at this and some of you might be like immediately spotting in the right hand the fact that I'm playing a C major triad. So you're saying, this is some sort of fancy C chord. But let me actually make it slightly more interesting. Actually, no, let's keep the C major in the right hand. Now, you're seeing I'm actually in the right hand, I'm really playing a C major triad. But in the left hand, I'm playing something else. Now, we could think of this. First of all, we can try and bring the different notes together. So I'm going to take this shape here and transpose it down an octave. And you know what? I'm going to do it once again. I'm going to take this C and put it down here. So I'm playing the exact same notes, but looking at this now, I have a C major, and it has additional degrees. It has a 6, 7, 8, 9. So this is a voicing for a C 6, 9 chord. Now, it doesn't really have to be, I said that this is an ambiguous question, it doesn't have to be a C6-9. For example, this could be kind of the upper structure of an A minor chord. Okay, so really all it's missing is for a bass player to come along and just play the A bass, and then for the pianist to play this. So it doesn't have to be a C6-9, it could be an A minor with just a rootless voicing. And just to again convince you this is an A minor, we have all of the notes we need. We have an A, C, E, which defines an A minor chord, triad. Then we have an additional, the 7th degree, which is the G, which is doubled here. And here we have the E again, so it's double. And then we have this D here, which really is the 11th degree. If you look at what an A minor 11th looks like, it looks like this. So the D is the 11th. Again, all of this requires quite a bit of gymnastics as far as recognizing chords and building chords and identifying chords. And my cats are actually fighting in the background, but don't mind them. They'll settle it between them soon enough. I think I'm going to stop at this point. It's been an interesting journey, I hope, for you, and hopefully a fun game. And let me know in the comments if you actually want me to make more of these types of videos, so we can have more of these chord challenges. That's it for now. I hope you've learned something interesting, and I'll see you next time.